The initial reports from last week were true. The Clark County Library series of UFO lectures and films is sold out. In fact, all the tickets for 2 months' worth of programs were gone in 2 days.
Wow.
This happens despite, as you know, Art, continued ridicule from other media here in Las Vegas, blind skepticism from science concerning UFOs. I think there is an appreciation that regular people feel this topic is important. Regular people want to know what's going on, and I think your program really fills an important niche in that area.
And clearly, interest in it is growing quickly.
It's exactly right. I had a chance to talk to Dr. John Mack of Harvard a couple of months ago, and he feels there's a quickening of the interest in this, and maybe even feels that the visitors, call them aliens or whatever, they may be responsible for picking up the stuff on this. For our sake.
Well, that's excellent, George. That really does please me. That means that more legitimate researchers will begin to look into all of this, and maybe we have a chance of really getting somewhere shortly.
Sure hope so.
All right, George, wonderful hearing from you as always. Thank you. That's George Knapp with a lot to say this morning, and of particular interest, those materials that he got out of Russia. And on another note that he mentioned, when we do get a little further into the program and get to a telephone segment, I, too, would like to ask that anybody in Clear Lake who can catch us up on what's going on over there would give us a call. I'm glad to know they're listening. Nice to hear they mentioned us in the Clear Lake newspaper. All right, time for a glimpse into another reality. That would be our Linda Howe, who I understand is at the airport or near the airport at an airport inn or something of that order, and is doing a lot of traveling. So I guess we'll find out what she's been up to right now. Glimpses of other realities. It comes from Linda Howe, now back in Philadelphia. Good evening, Linda.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
I spent the day in Rye, New Hampshire, which is up near Portsmouth and Exeter. For those listening who are familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case, it was up in that area that famous first abduction occurred. This was the annual New Hampshire MUFON conference. It occurs on a day, on a Sunday, has for the last 3 years, and this day there were nearly 600 people in the audience. It was one of our best attended, which several people, including John Mack, one of the speakers, he and I at lunch were talking about the fact that the grassroots interest in the phenomena seems to be growing conference to conference. The general audience is getting larger. And today, the people who did speak were John Mack and Richard Hoagland, and I'll talk a little bit about what he had to say about Mars in a second. Myself, Colin Andrews, and Crop Circles, and David Jacobs. Most of these people you've had on the program in the last couple of months. But I will start with a recap of what I think were some very important points that Dr. Mack made to set the day off in what everyone agreed was the focus of the conference and will continue to be probably the focus of much of our work in the coming years. And Dr. Mack put it in those ways. Other realities, glimpses of other realities is where we are headed with all of this phenomenon, because it is not just simply the extraterrestrial biological entity that we're dealing with. There appears to be other dimensional aspects to it. And in that context, he said that he's now studied 76 UFO abduction cases and has found an interesting evolution that he has been surprised in terms of the nature and complexity of the evolution of abductees themselves if they hang in there with him as a psychiatrist. That's his background as a psychiatrist at Harvard, and working with hypnosis, and has seen them go through terrific fear, terrific anger. Many people feel like that they have been raped by some kind of a physical entity or being, or taken against their will, or all kinds of physical violations that manifest in terrible trauma. As he said, he has never in his years as a psychiatrist seen the kind of trauma that he has seen when he has worked with the abductees in hypnosis. And yet, he said that in many cases now, If they hang in there and they continue to work together, they seem to come to a point, some kind of a breakthrough. And they pass the fear, they pass the trauma. They end up with a new sense that the abduction experience is concerned with the evolution of their spiritual life in some way. And in that context, he has found, and this has shocked him as a psychiatrist, he said it was very difficult for him in the beginning when these episodes began coming out, and that would be an abductee who, under hypnosis, trying to deal with the abduction experience, is being taken back to their birth, trying to find out where these experiences begin, and he's suddenly, apparently, in another life, and in another life, the same beings or beings that look like the ones that were involved in the abduction in this life are in what appears to be another life. And so Dr. Mack himself, a professor of psychiatry at Harvard University, who 4 years ago did not, as he said, know what he was getting into and has been finding his own curiosity provoked to the point he has studied and worked with 76 people, is now finding that the whole idea of reincarnative cycles, life to life, is becoming part of his research, and that the same alien beings are in these other lives too, that there's some connection between the alien beings and a particular abductee's current life. Now, what that is headed toward in terms of understanding the implications of all this for the human-alien interaction in the past, present, and future is a huge unknown, and I think that there will probably be more and more reports over the next year or two or three in this particular area, and I hope to be bringing more information about this kind of other aspect of a reality that also touches perhaps into the near-death experiences. That's something we don't know yet, but Ken Ring's work certainly suggests that there are parallels between what happens to abductees and what happens at the moment of death.
Boy, that is really fascinating, Linda. Do you think the two areas of study will somehow merge at some point? It sounds like it's possible.
Well, in my own research, I am exploring both all the time, and Dr. Mack and I and others, we see each other on a somewhat regular basis at conferences, and I think what will continue to happen is we will keep sharing our own research and our insights about all of this, and as we see something that seems to be another insight, I will certainly report it on Area 2000, and so the radio listeners and you and I and George and all of us, I feel like we're all learning together as we move along each week, and we really are bringing glimpses of other realities because none of us know the answers, and every week something new happens. The next speaker was Richard Hoagland, and there were 2 hours of his particular focus of research about Mars and his I guess you would say almost 10-year mission to convince the world that there is an artificially constructed face up there that's a mile long and 1,500 feet high, and that it was placed there, according to his estimates, based on a whole variety of research they've been doing, way before the current cycle of Homo sapien here, let's say in the last 25 or 50,000 years. He's placing it back much further than that. And he explained that this work that he's been doing on the face on Mars and other structures has now been awarded a major scientific honor in Sweden just in the past week or two, because Sweden believes that the mathematical work that people like Torin it's in Washington, D.C., Errol Torin, who works for the Defense Mapping Agency, has been involved with research on the mathematical relationships on Mars. Mark Carlotto at the Analytical Sciences Corporation in Reading, Massachusetts, has been using computer enhancement to look at this space, to look at other objects that are within about 10 miles of this space in a region called Cydonia that appear to be at least pyramidal looking. They look sort of like pyramids in these computer-enhanced photographs. And because the math, the angles, and the relationships between the face and these pyramid-like structures appear to have consistencies, patterns that repeat over and over and over again, it is reinforcing the idea that Hoagland introduced 10 years ago or so in his book work, The Monuments on Mars, that it is artificially constructed and that it is very ancient, that it was something that was there once upon a time and left these huge, gigantic markers on the surface of Mars. And the big question is, why? Now, he personally stated at the conference today that he has sources that are suggesting, as George has talked about, that the orbiter is actually not in a failure mode, but has continued to function on some kind of classified channel because they wanted to get pictures of this region and other regions of Mars secretly.
All right, Linda, I've got to stop you here because somebody faxed me something that I'm sitting on, and I don't know what to make of it. It appeared in a publication called The Weekly World News, September 14th edition. It purports to be a rather high-resolution picture of the phase on Mars, and it is absolutely startling. And I guess I'm going to have to figure a way to fax it to you or get it to you. It comes with a story. It says that this was taken on August 20th, this August 20th.
Well, if it were anything else but the World Weekly News...
You'd be ready. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Seriously, what these are proving, the problem in all this is, we always can get leaks here and there, and Hoagland is saying that he's had what he considers to be firmer leaks than just speculation or the Weekly World News, that something actually is still functioning on Mars, but that the government does not want us to know anything yet until they've had a chance to analyze what's up there. Now, I suppose there are two possibilities. One is that it is not functioning and we'll never know and they're going to have to relaunch something. Or they are getting some kind of data, and then somebody's going to have to come up with a scenario of how they would reintroduce this lost satellite orbiting around Mars so that they might reintroduce some data from a planet that we haven't been to since 1976.
Well, Linda, they have been right along suggesting that, they may regain contact, so they're leaving the door open.
Yeah, and that may actually reinforce what Richard Hoagland had to say today in New Hampshire about this new information, that it actually is functioning. He also suggested that in December that there will be a NASA mission to repair the Hubble telescope.
Right.
And he was indicating that he believes that the mission, the repair mission itself, is also a type of cover-up, that they actually are going to be using that telescope to focus on some kind of multiple asteroid-like objects that are supposed to be coming into the solar system right now and that they want to track on Hubble. But what we now have, since this is in September, it's not very long until we get to December. We've only got 2 or 3 months to see how is information about Mars, the Hubble telescope, asteroids, how is it going to be handled, and is there something that is going to come out of all of this that will culminate maybe in the government finally telling us something straight about the whole alien connection. That's what I'm hoping will happen.
Wow. Well, I'll hope along with you. And
let me just give you one quick update, and then I'll pass it on to you.
All right.
And that is, I got a call Friday before I left for New Hampshire from Dr. Lovingood. And he had a chance to look at that black tissue around the wheat seeds from that enormous 445-foot formation in Churchill that I talked with you all about now 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was in England. That first night I got to Alton Barnes, and this big, enormous, beautiful formation was laid out in that wheat field. And he's had a chance to look at what's called the electrical conductivity across the black tissue on those seeds from inside the formation, and says they line up right down the line with a very unusual pattern of electric conductivity and oscillation of this tissue that he has found in the Utica, New York formation, the Kennewick, Washington formation, and others in Canada, the United States, Australia, and England that fall into another pattern of other anomalous changes in the plants that Dr. Lovingood, a biophysicist, says cannot be hoaxed. So, for those caught up in the politics